with a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning.
Welcome
Good
back
morning,
to Tobago
morning.
and welcome
Good
to our
morning,
viewers
morning.
tuning in from outside the island. I am your host, Jada Charles, and today I am joined by the lovely WPC Corbin Clark of the Special Victims Department. We are here to talk about domestic violence issues, and we're going to focus specifically on how women in physically abusive relationships can get help from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So good morning, Ms. Clark. You look lovely today. So just to begin, can you tell us how long you've been an officer in the Special Victims Department?
Okay, so I have been working in the Child Protection Unit from since 2015. However, there was a merger of 3 units: Child Protection Unit, the Domestic Violence Unit, and the Sexual Offences Unit, which took place sometime between 2021 2022, where they merged 3 units because we were dealing with victims in general. So it's a recent merger. However, the transition has been very smooth.
Wow, that is lovely to know. I wasn't aware of that. So can you tell us something? During your time there, how often would you say that crimes of domestic violence are reported?
Well, on an average, we get roughly at least 1 report per day, but we can see a maximum of up to 5 reports receiving. At our location, we have 2 main locations, which are at the Shervin Road Police Station and at the Roxborough Police Station. But nonetheless, victims can go to any police station throughout Trinidad and Tobago and make a report of domestic violence.
Wow, viewers, I hope you're listening. So, for our purpose and for our benefit, can you let us know how long does it take for police intervention when a crime of this nature is reported? And also, how quickly does a matter such as this appear before the court?
Well, I must say, for us, it's immediate intervention. From the moment we receive the call, our unit operates on a 24-hour basis. Right. So as soon as we receive the information, that information is transmitted to us and we respond. And whilst we are out there, we collaborate with different agencies to get that victim to the necessary care they need. If it is that they need medical care, we take them to the hospital. And in some cases, when there are victims who walk in to the office and there are victims who will call for assistance, we go to them.
Wow, I'm so happy to hear that. That is a relief to hear. So adding on to that, you know, sometimes they make a report and their abusers are not yet in police custody. So what are some protective measures that the police can do in the interim to protect and safeguard victims of domestic abuse?
This is where we need the assistance of the victim's family. And we often say that social support is important for every victim.
Yes.
That victim would need a place of safety.
Yes.
In Tobago, we don't necessarily have a place of safety, but in Trinidad, there's a place of safety. So what we admonish persons to do, relatives to do, is to open up their homes to the victim so that that victim could be housed there. And what we do welfare checks on our victims.
Yes.
So it's not just taking them to a location and leaving there. We also make regular checks and we make phone calls to them to ensure that they feel safe during that time before the matter is taken before the court.
Yeah, and I like how you said that, because for a lot of women, it might not be your reality, but it may be the reality of your friend, of your mother, of your daughter, of your sister. So I like how you said that the family should be that support, your friend should be that support. And I hope women feel safe enough if they are going through stuff like this to go and speak out and tell somebody, because you might not be strong enough, but you might get the extra strength that you need from somebody close to you. So adding on to that point as well, right? What would you say, based on what you have noticed, are some typical warning signs for women that may be in denial to decipher and say, here what, maybe I am in a domestic abusive relationship?
Well, what I encourage women to do is understand what domestic violence is.
Right.
One type of domestic violence that goes unnoticed is emotional abuse.
Wow.
A lot of the times, people don't understand what emotional abuse is.
Yes.
A simple thing as name calling, a simple thing of telling a victim that you are stupid, you're not intelligent, you're not smart, preventing that person from going to work, preventing them from going to church. If you, and it's simple, just go on the internet and Google it, and you would see what emotional abuse is.
Yes.
Because that's where it starts, and then it escalates into physical abuse and sometimes sexual abuse.
Yes.
So it's important that victims educate themselves on what is domestic violence, and for them to determine, am I a victim? And when they do that, some victims, only when they arrive at the station that they recognize, you know what? This has been happening to me for years.
Yes.
But it's only when they got attacked by the perpetrator that they come and make that report. That's when it's already escalated. But however, at the unit, we also partner with the Victim and Witness Support Unit, which is a part of the Tobago Police Service. That's a service we offer for psychological support to our victims that come in, and some of them may need that assistance to help them to process what has happened to them. So the TTPS has gone a step further, not just to provide officers to deal with the criminal aspects of it, but we have that department that deals with the psychological aspect of it.
I really love how you're going into depth, because a lot of people may not be aware that all this help is being offered by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. And it may be hard for a lot of women to really acknowledge and accept that, yes, I am going through this and I am really in a state of violence, and to make a report. So I'm really, really happy that there is those centers that they can go to and seek the help that they really need. Okay, so based on your experience, right? What have you noticed? Are there any common factors in the alleged perpetrators? Do they come from, let's say, a specific background, a specific demographic? Do they usually have a history of substance abuse? What is really like a similarity in the abusers?
Well, what we can say, oftentimes, when you look at the aggressor, most of the times the cause of the abuse is that they don't know how to manage conflict. And you have to go back to socialization and the process of socialization, and as mothers, how we grow up our children, our boys to be specific, in how to treat with how they respond to an argument or respond to communication with their significant others. So it is important to note that a lot of the times it comes from the background of that, a cycle of abuse. Sometimes the perpetrator may have seen abuse on their mothers or on somebody, and they grew up thinking that that's the norm.
Yes.
And this is how they treat with a conflict, by saying negative words or by hitting that person.
Yes. You brought up a very valid point, and it is very important that we stress on how important that the home is. When you're growing up, you need to come from a loving family. You need to have that kind of guidance, because it can really lead you astray. And you made a very important notice that sometimes they think it is normal and they think it is okay when it really is not. So I really hope that for men out there that are struggling with those types of anger issues or those types of feelings, that they really take a beat and sit back and say, you know what, maybe let me just walk away from this situation rather than trying to be abusive to somebody else. So I just want to ask you, what advice would you give to women who may have made a report and they were turned away, or to women who may be apprehensive to make a report to the station due to fear?
Okay, what I can boast is that at the TTPS, what occurred is that we partnered with the UN, the United Nations, and a spotlight initiative was done in 2020 and 2021, where over 200 officers were trained in gender-responsive policing. Incidentally, I was one of the facilitators of that training at the police academy, where we trained over 200 police officers in how to deal with victims of domestic violence. What are some of the signs to look for? We talk about trauma bonding that victims go through, and why victims will be come to the station and make numerous, sometimes 20 reports the same victim is making. And for us as officers not to be frustrated by that, but for us to function in our capacity as officers, we were trained.
Yes.
And that training was extensive. And a lot of officers coming out of that training, and we had graduation, they indicated that they even went back and shared that information with their colleagues who have not yet benefited from that training. So we have that transference of information at the station. So that is why any person can go to any police station in Trinidad and Tobago and feel comforted and know that if it did transpire in the past, it is not going to happen now because of the training we receive as officers in how to treat domestic violence victims.
Okay, well, I hope for our viewers listening that you heard how equipped the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service are to help you if you are going through some sort of domestic violence or some sort of domestic abuse. You know, we really want to encourage women to come out and speak out about this. A lot of people hold it in and they feel like it's not as serious, but it is. Don't let it get too far before you actually speak out and say something. Or if you have a friend or you know somebody that is going through this, don't wait until they're bloody or they're bleeding. You know, tell them now, you know, you should get away from the situation or you should make a report, because we should not encourage this type of behavior to be loose. So, do you believe that, you know, the TTPS should have rehabilitation programs and stuff like that in partnership with social services to kind of help women and victims heal from abuse that they may have suffered?
What I can tell you is that we have already begun partnering with social institutions. Quite recently, we had our school intervention program, which goes around to schools throughout Tobago, lecturing not only to the students, but to the teachers, to the PTA, to the churches, to any group that will have us. And what we lecture on is a combination of abuse and how it impacts. Because you see, domestic violence not only impacts the victim themselves, it impacts the wider community, impacts children especially. And we see children now growing up in that cycle and continuing that cycle. So what the unit decided is that there is a need not to just stay at the adult level, but go down to the children and see the impact that it has on them, and to really do that reformation of their mind, to let them know from that stage that it's not accepted. Because we often get called to the school with children who are now engaging in violence, and when we trace it back to, we recognize the home has domestic violence in it. So now at the TTPS, we're not just looking at treating symptoms, we are looking at the cause of what causes domestic violence and how can we assist at the TTPS to treat with that, to eradicate it by 2025, as 2030 as indicated by United Nations.
Wow, I really want to applaud the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service for taking the extra initiative to start from young, to train children up, because, you know, the Bible says you must train children up in the way that they must go. And it is really important that you touched on how it is the adults also affect the child, because you spoke about that cycle. When you grow up and you're used to certain things, you might say, okay, this is okay. So this is what we're going back to now. With most of the abusers, they probably came from that type of upbringing and background of domestic abuse and seeing it in their home. So they're thinking it's okay. So I really appreciate the fact that you all are going further to go to schools and to speak to them. And also, you know, it's not only in the school. Everybody can see, you know, what is right, you know what is wrong. And if it is you notice something, or you notice a child that has violent behavior, you know, you pull them aside and you let them know it's time to change your actions. So last question, which is the most important question. What are the hotlines and numbers that victims can call if they are suffering from domestic violence?
Well, at the TTPS, we have 999, and then we have all the police station numbers throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Then at the Tobago sub-office, we have 639-8246, and we have 639-1812 at Roxborough. And of course, I said you can call any of the numbers of the various police stations and make a report.
Wow, thank you so much. That was some useful information. And I hope that you viewers definitely benefited from this discourse today. I just want to say I really appreciate all the information that you shared. And I know that it was of some use to me. I'm so happy that, you know, I got all this information, and I know the viewers really appreciate it as well. So thank you, WPC Corvin Clark. And Viewers, have a great day.
Okay, thank you for having us, and we are glad to share that information with the general public.
Thank you.
October will never be better with Tobago Carnival Fever. Okay, passage and come on over.